What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Taste Like Music. Jason, Joe, and Crams are here. Kicking off a new series, Judge and Jury. Today, I am both the judge and the jury. Anytime one of us has a controversial opinion, they can take it to the court and let things play out in the justice system. And so today, Cram is bringing one of his more controversial claims. If you've watched the channel a lot, you may have heard him say this, but for some reason, he thinks Ron Wood is the best Rolling Stones guitarist.
Jason, that's absolutely correct. Ron Wood is one of my favorite guitar players of all time. I think he is the best guitarist to ever set foot in Rolling Stones. And my esteemed colleague here, Joe, will attempt to defend Mick Taylor. Once I win this argument, we'll take on Keith Richards. And I even think Ron Wood is better than Keith Richards in every aspect of the way. So, let's hear. I know what the argument's going to be, but let's go.
I mean, how could you possibly even make the argument? Are we talking about are you going to go through every archival footage and compare them on stage? Which one technically is a better guitarist? Or are you going to talk about their contributions to the Rolling Stones, which only a fool would say Ron Wood made more and better contributions to the Stones discography than Mick? I mean, is that your argument?
So, when you're looking at the Mick era, I think those albums are, from the guitar standpoint, Keith dominated. Great songwriting, no doubt. And this is where I'm going to lose people. I think the brilliance of the Rolling Stones are the live performance. I think the first thing I think of when I think Rolling Stones is they're a live band that never fucking stops, and they're fucking awesome. And I think that got elevated in the late 70s so much when Ronnie Wood came to town. Even if you lift tracks before, what was his first album? Some Girls or Emotional Rescue? It was one of the later ones.
He's on Black and Blue, but not officially in the band yet.
Okay, so he's on Black and Blue. Even if you look at all of the live stuff after that, all of the versions of those songs, the old stuff from Exile on before, all the Mick Taylor stuff, they sound so good live, and they have these ripping friggin' solos, which makes them like one of the greatest live rock bands ever because of Ron Wood. And here's the other big argument. The first word that comes to mind when you think of Rolling Stones are cool. They're just like the coolest band ever. Like Zeppelin was heavy, the Beatles were creative and inventive. Rolling Stones are just cool. There's no one cooler than the Rolling Stones. Ron Wood is so much cooler than Mick Taylor. It is absolutely preposterous. He's might be the coolest guy on the planet. To be honest, he's just the coolest fucking dude. He's always just ripping cigs, ripping a solo, and then wearing sunglasses and a woman's red blazer, and going and being all right, Keith, you do the rest of your just 3-chord bullshit, and then I'll come in and save the fucking song. That's a little bit hyperbole. Obviously, Keith Richards is a great songwriter, but the elevation of them as a live act, which I think has become their legacy for the last 4 decades, is one of the big reasons is because of Ron Wood. And he just adds such an element to their live show. There's no way Mick Taylor right now, 5 minutes ago, would be selling out Wembley Stadium doing 180 minutes the way Ron Wood could. And just walking into the Rolling Stones and playing off Keith Richards, who at the time, next to Jimmy Page, was the best live guitarist ever, and just being having the feng shui and the fucking cock in his hand, just be I'm as good as you, maybe better. Let's do this. It's awesome.
Okay, well, you made some excellent points there. I will give you that. I've never heard the Rolling Stones live, literally been to a Rolling Stones show. So I can't, tell you technically which is better on stage. Obviously, Ronnie Wood's discography outside the Stones is phenomenal. I mean, his work with the Faces, his work with Rod Stewart, solo stuff, Never Dull Moment. His guitar on that is amazing. Did stuff with Dylan and Dark Horse with George Harrison, and he was on Donovan Records, and all this stuff that he did outside of the Rolling Stones. You notice I didn't mention the Rolling Stones at all there because, unfortunately, as soon as he came aboard the Rolling Stones, the band just did a nosedive into sort of like good, but like if you hadn't done all that other stuff before, the stuff with Mick, you probably no one would really care about you now. I mean, you just look at the albums that Mick Taylor was on, and it's not even a comparison. He was there for Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Street and Goat's Head Soup and It's Only Rock and Roll.
But what are his like? If you take him out, they're probably the same album. Like that's all. It's all Keith.
You really think
Also,
Keith is like the deciding factor for everything? Like, I mean, obviously he's the guy, but there's a lot of guitar on those albums that's not Keith.
but does it stand out like the way that the friggin' feel of Start Me Up does? Like, also, and I think Jason might agree with me on this. I don't think like the later period Stones records are that big of a drop off. Like, I love pretty much all Stones stuff. Stones are a top 10 band for me. Obviously, like, yeah, you've got Sticky Fingers and Exile and Aftermath, probably my favorite album, which Nick not even on. But like, Some Girls is great. Emotional Rescue is great. I think Tattoo You is great. I think Bridges of Babylon's pretty damn good. I think Steel Wheels is really good. Like, I don't think it's that big of a fall. Like, I just don't. And when you look, my favorite thing about listening to the Stones are the live albums. And, all the ones that Ron are on, they rip, dude. And he's just got that cooling factor. There's no way they could have aged with the coolness factor that he did without Ron Wood like also being there. And that's my argument.
Well, that's fine. The live stuff, yeah. Ronnie Wood's probably a better guitarist. I don't know where they rank all time. Mick Taylor was 37th last time Rolling Stone did a list, all time. So that's pretty good. 37th all time out of 100. That's damn good. I don't know where Ronnie fit in.
It's way too high, is what you mean.
It's a little high. I find that a tad bit high, but his work on those albums, I think you're definitely underplaying the most guitar heavy, bluesiest albums that they ever did. And Ron Wood's fine. Like, I love his work, but other than Some Girls, which is slightly overrated by Jason and probably you, nothing that Ron Wood and the Rolling Stones need to be etched in history. Like, that's all just kind of extra bonus stuff. It's inessential Rolling Stones material. The good stuff, the great stuff was Mick Taylor. He was there directly contributing. Well, Ron Wood was out playing with Stewart and, jerking around with the faces and stuff like that. Like, the Rolling Stones, Mick Taylor is the number 2 behind only Keith.
All right. Time for me to settle this. So what Cram does have going for him here is that my favorite Stones record is Some Girls. And I do like the cool argument because I think Ron Wood is vastly cooler than Mick Taylor. Joe, in his favor, has the body of work of Mick Taylor in the Rolling Stones. Ron Wood does have that body of work outside of the Stones, but we're talking about who's the better Stones guitarist here. So I think if I was considering the faces and all that other stuff, I might give it to Ronnie Wood. But here's what it comes down to for me. I think it's about who plays off of Keith the best. And I think Mick and Keith are a great pairing. They're like a Joe Perry, Brad Whitford, different guitarists that work really well together. I see Mick as like more of a straight kind of player against the sloppiness of Keith. where I think Ron Wood is a lot like Keith. I think they both have that kind of loose, sloppy, kind of ragged type of feel. And to me, I think he's too much the same with Keith. So I'm going to give this one to Joe and Nick Taylor.
I did very little. It was mostly mixed. His body of work speaks for itself.
I don't know why Jason's even on this channel. I know he founded it, but I don't think he's got it anymore. I really don't.
Are you going to replace him? Are you going to be the Ronnie Wood to Jason's Mick Taylor?
Yeah, exactly. We need a Ron Wood type of supplement to get rid of Jason. Someone that's going to take us into the new millennium.
If we're talking Ron Wood versus Mick Taylor, I'm taking Ron Wood every time, but just not in the Rolling Stones. It's not even close in the Stones. I mean, his work with the Faces is incredible. His work with Rod Stewart, amazing. But it's not in the Rolling Stones. And that's where the crux of the argument lies. So, yes, I was a deserving winner, I think.
The guitar work is so much more interesting playing off each other with Ron Wood there. Like, it's safer with Mick because he's just like, all right, Keith has written this, and I'm going to just kind of, you know, give it backbone. But it gets wild. Like, the two wild loose cannons are awesome. Like, you get stuff of like Undercover and like Just Start Me Up Alone. Listen to the guitar tracks on Start Me Up. They're friggin' awesome. Like, how
You're trying to kick me off the channel for an argument that no one's going to agree with you for.
well, all right, whatever. I can die. No, I'm right.
Well, let us know what you think. Does anybody out there agree with Kramzer? Would they take Ron Wood over Mick Taylor? Let us know in the comments. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so, and check all the links in the video description for all of our social media and our website and our Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel further. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.